Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters. Welcome to this week's live chat. I really missed you guys the last couple of weeks. I was out of town, going and doing things, and I was like, I don't like to go live besides here in my own place. So missed you all, but I'm glad to be back today. I've got some fun stuff. I've got a great giveaway for you. And of course, now that I'm back, I will be here regularly for live chats. And next week's live chat is going to be vintage Angela quilting. I'm going to take you on a memory lane from some of my earlier quilts. So it's going to be kind of fun. But this week's live chat, I'm going to get to show you all about our new Build-A-Quilt Block of the Month program. If you haven't been in one of my live chats before, I normally talk about something machine quilting related, but every once in a while we kind of veer off into other topics. But I'm excited to show it. But one lucky viewer that's watching live right now is going to win a registration in our Build-A-Quilt. So I'm going to tell you all about that here in a second. But when I'm working on things like there's so much stuff coming up for us. We've got Build-A-Quilt. We have a challenge that's going to be announced soon. And so like when I finally get to the point where I can show you all, it's so exciting. So it's kind of like this thing that's been in the process. So without any further ado, let's go right to it. Oh, my thing's messed up. Hold on a second. I don't know why that's messed up. Well, there we go. Anyway, so Build-A-Quilt is our block of the month. That is still not working. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Build-A-Quilt is our block of the month, and the thing about Build-A-Quilt is exclusively to quilting is my therapy. So what we do is I design the fabric, I design the blocks for the whole year's Build-A-Quilt, and it is quite the undertaking. I love to do it. I love to show all it off and do it, so I'm going to show you all about it. So Build-A-Quilt, this will be our 9th year of doing this block of the month, which it's crazy because this whole thing started because Joni, one of my employees, was like, hey, we should do a block of the month. And I was like, I don't really know what a block of the month is. So with her and I together, we kind of put this together, this idea that you can kind of customize your own block of the month experience. So it's kind of fun to think how far we've come over those years. So basically, Build-A-Quilt is an option where you can get 10 blocks in 3 different colorways. That's where the Build-A-Quilt comes into it. And then there's 3 different optional finishing kits. So depending on what blocks you use and what layout, you're going to end up with something maybe a little different. We only open up registration once a year because it's a 10-month program. And so this is that sweet time of the year when it's actually open and ready for it. So I'm super excited to show you all about it. First of all, it's a one-time fee to participate. So I know some block of the months will do like a monthly fee, but this is just a one-time fee and you get your 10 blocks for it. And we have different ways to participate. We have a quilt shop. We're located here just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, but not everybody gets to live here. And so whether you live internationally, whether you live around us, or you just want to be online and get your blocks mailed to you, you can totally do that. So again, another way you can kind of customize it. But putting this together is kind of like a labor of love. It's a creative kind of challenge to come up with 10 blocks and then 3 completely different fabric collections. And so even if you're like, I don't want to do the block of the month, I'm excited to show you a little bit into the peak of the process, a little bit of the process I use when I'm designing fabric, which is a totally different part of the brain than quilting. Right, so it's kind of a different creative endeavor. So sometimes what I'll do is if one side of my brain's too tired, I'll go quilt or vice versa. So it's just kind of a fun way to change it up. So one thing that's really cool, since I designed the fabric, we actually produce our own fabric. I can make the blocks on panels. So you can see that little panel at the top of the screen. That is all the fabric you need to make each month's block. And let me tell you, when we figured that out, that was pretty amazing. The first few years, we had to cut out all the individual pieces. I'm surprised that none of my employees hated me. I mean, maybe they did. They just didn't tell me. But now when you get your block kit, it has a panel with the fabric and it has the pattern. So that's kind of the little kit that you get. Now, one thing we're doing a little different. If you've done Build-A-Quilt before, and I know that some of you that do the live chat have, we're going to start in January. So in the past, we've started in November and went that way, took 2 months off during the year. But I thought, you know what, this is silly. Let's go January through October. We'll do it all in a row. So kind of a little different bit there. So it's not going to start right away. We're going to have until January to start, which is kind of fun. This computer is messing up. All right, so here are the color options. This is a thing I love to show, the 3 different fabric collections. So in my mind, for some reason, I think that each collection has to have 9 fabrics. I think it just gives enough range to the blocks. It kind of gives me something to play with, and it's just, I don't know. So I have 3 fabric collections with 9 prints in each. And when I'm picking out the colors, which is really the hardest part for me, color is just something I have to work on. I want each colorway to be different, right? I don't want to have all of them so similar so it's hard to pick, So I try to do one that's kind of wild and crazy. I try to do one that's a little neutral, and then one is just kind of a whatever I'm feeling. So you can probably see that as we start going through here. So first one is Hidden Grove. So Hidden Grove is very kind of fall inspired, which I know if you did last year's Build-A-Quilt, we had pumpkin season that was a little bit more pumpkin-y, if that makes sense. So this was actually Joni's kind of baby. She really kind of advocated for these colors, the darker kind of almost black, the dark navy, those kind of rich kind of tones. And so Joni, who does Build-A-Quilt with me, she does give me input on it. And so I always kind of say this is her baby. But a little bit of the kind of floral prints, and I'll show you more of the fabric here in a second. But I love how it makes all the blocks look different. So here we can see the 10 blocks in the fabrics. Now, one thing that's kind of difficult about this, because I do design fabric not for our block of the month, when I'm designing just a fabric collection, I don't really have to worry what it looks like in blocks. I'm going to let the quilter that buys the fabric figure that out. But in here, I'm not only designing the fabric, I want it to look good in blocks. So sometimes there'll be prints that I really love, but it just doesn't work within the blocks that I have. So I'm kind of designing the blocks, designing the fabric, and then making sure it all works together. And so kind of picking and choosing what looks good. It's kind of a fun puzzle. I mean, basically the process is I started this probably June, just kind of wrap this up. And usually about a month before I launch, that's when I'm like, I hate everything. I suck at this. There's no Build-A-Quilt next year. Jessica's smiling because she's had to talk me off the ledge a couple times. I think when you're doing a creative process, there's always that point where you're like, you get too close to it and you're like, oh my gosh, everything I'm doing is horrible. And I know now that means I'm probably pretty close to the end. So it's not like I sit down one day and like, oh, I made this pretty thing. So it's like a process. So we can see the 10 different blocks in our Build-A-Quilt here in the Hidden Grove colorway. One of my favorite things is coming up with the names. So I'm going to show you some of the prints that are in there. So again, very kind of, I don't want to say fall, but just like those rich kind of colors, the golds and that kind of almost rust color, which is not something I naturally gravitate towards. One of the trickier parts, I think, about owning a quilt shop and designing fabric is I got to think beyond my own tastes. If I were going to design fabric just for myself, everything would be gray and teal with a pop of some other color. But I mean, that would just get boring after a while. So this is, like I said, a little bit out of my comfort zone. This one was probably the hardest for me to put together, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now, one thing I want to say is even if, I lost it, but the whole point, even if you're not going to do Build-A-Quilt, we will have these fabrics online. So you can get the cute fabrics if you want. And like I said, I'm giving away a Build-A-Quilt. I don't know if I said that exactly. I'm giving away a Build-A-Quilt, so make sure you comment if you're watching live. All right, so then we have some grays and some sage greens. I mean, Joni was all about the greens, which I love. So kind of that, I don't know, that kind of color. A lot of textures in the prints. I don't do a lot of just really big kind of focal prints. I used to have one, but I'm kind of more of a blender kind of gal. But you can see the prints there. So that's the Hidden Grove colorway. And then you saw the blocks in there. Now for the next one, I was like, okay, I'm really going to push myself here because I just, like I said, I don't gravitate towards those colors or really bright colors. And one year, one of my Build-A-Quilters was like, you need to do something bright. And I'm like, okay, so here you go. We got something bright. It's Moon Blossom. First time ever using orange or a shade of orange in Build-A-Quilt. So we'll see how that goes. This one is just bright. It's saturated. It's kind of in your face. It's fun with kind of those pinks and the purples, blues, and that hint of sherbet. Just a hint, just a little bit. And it's great because once you see the blocks, it looks totally different. But here we can see some of those prints. So there's that big focal kind of floral print. Can't get away from flowers. I just think they always look great. But some different prints there. These are going to be like the main ones. And then we have kind of the backup ones, the darker colors. And we can see that pink and that purple. And like I said, that sherbet, which it's really hard to get an idea of what that fabric looks like when you're looking on a screen. But it's really kind of soft. It looks kind of really orangey there, but it's not quite that orangey. And so those are the prints in Moon Blossom. So like I said, this one was out of my comfort zone for sure. I mean, I think that's good. I think as creatives, whether you're just a quilter, not just a quilter, whether you're a quilter or you're a designer, whatever, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone is good. So this one was just difficult in that like I had trouble getting those colors to work out, but I'm super happy. And I love how the blocks turned out. So that main print has a little bit of all the colors and you can kind of see that come out with the blocks. So I've designed all 3 colorways. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do. Now, to be honest, I don't piece a lot of blocks, but I thought this year I probably should. Normally, Joni does the piecing for me. I do the designing, but anyway. And then the last one is my more neutral color. So like I said, I always have some kind of softer, something neutrally, something that's kind of like, I don't want to say a safe pick, but something that's not going to be so crazy as the others for those of us that like taupe and those blues. So seafoam green was kind of where I was heading with that. Some taupey kind of colors and just a little bit of the blue. This one probably is the one I'll end up doing. I love these colors. I love like that blue kind of taupe color. But this one was actually the trickier one to design because teal and navy, it's just in blue, it's tricky. So anyway, I finally got those colors dialed in perfectly and I'm super happy with how it turned out. So here we can see some of those prints. So again, floral inspired, but lots of textures in the prints. Really kind of fun. Every year I get done with Build-A-Quilt, I think I'm never going to be able to design another fabric collection ever again. Like I just feel like I'm totally empty. But I think what's great about creativity is it's something that kind of refreshes, your well kind of fills back up. So I'm just glad I can do it again. And then we can see some of those taupes. So again, just kind of that more neutrally, more soft kind of colors. I love that seafoam green. And then there's the blocks in that colorway. Not really related to Build-A-Quilt, but one of the things that I see with quilters is when we look at a quilt, it's really hard to imagine it in other colors. Sometimes we want to know exactly what it's going to look like before we start piecing it. And I've got to encourage you to really kind of try to change up the color placement. I say that as though like I'm good about putting myself outside my comfort zone. But the idea is, when you look at a quilt, try imagining it different colors. And the more you work with fabrics, the more you'll be able to do that. I know especially when I started piecing, it was hard to see a quilt and imagine it in any other color. So it's kind of fun in this kind of situation to see them kind of actually in the different prints. And I will tell you, I'm not a great piecer. We kind of all know that if you watch any of my live chats. But when I design these blocks on the computer, they're always perfectly pieced. So it's kind of fun to do that. It's kind of just teasing there. All right, so Build-A-Quilt perks. There's other things a part of Build-A-Quilt. Again, there's a link in the description box below that has all this information. So check that out. You can find out everything. But besides getting the blocks, there's a little bit more to Build-A-Quilt. We have some optional oops panels. So these fabric panels have a square of each of the fabrics. The idea being, let's say you make a mistake on your block. You don't want to have to buy a yard of fabric to fix it, right? From the website. So here you can have just a little bit of each, and then you can use that. Another option for it is to supplement or switch out fabrics in some of the blocks. It's okay. Like I tell people, I'm like, I design these blocks, but if you don't like how that looks, you can switch them up. So if you don't want a certain print in a certain spot, you can use it for that. Or you just have a cute little quick panel that you can quilt. So it's kind of fun there. So those are optional, of course. And then another part of Build-A-Quilt that is quite the big deal is when we do the finishing kits. So my year kind of revolves around Quilt Walk and Build-A-Quilt and challenges. In April, that's when we announce the optional finishing kits for the blocks. So there will be 3 different options. I don't have them designed yet. This is one that will be one of them, and you can buy that kit and then put your blocks in it. So those are usually announced in April. When we started it, Joni was like, well, you kind of have to have the finishing kit or the whole layout done at the beginning. And I'm like, well, I don't have it done. So we decided to announce it halfway through the year. So really, that's just to let me get past one part and then do the rest. But the finishing kits, like I said, just are the frame for your blocks. You don't have to buy it. You can use your blocks in any quilt pattern. They're 12-inch blocks. So any quilt pattern that uses 12-inch blocks, you can use it. Or we've had a lot of builders create their own quilts, which is really fun to see too. But that will be announced in April. And then I do quilting diagrams for them. I did a whole live chat on it not too long ago. But at the end of the year, I put together some quilting suggestions for those of you that love machine quilting as much as I do. So there's that option as well. And then beyond that, we have a Facebook group. We have exclusive deals. We'll make products, exclusive products. And then we do like a quick little monthly video, like here's the block. And Joni, which I should have made her come for this live chat. That would have been awesome. I don't know why I just thought about that. Joni is awesome. If you've done Build-A-Quilt, you know Joni. She is a retired home ec teacher. And she is a precise piecer. And so we are the two sides of the coin, right? We're kind of like a duo. So Joni does a little like kind of video with tips and stuff. So you kind of have some support in that way. If you're working on a block and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, Joni will help you. I always tell my Build-A-Quilters, I'm like, if you have questions, email Joni. You can email me, but I'll send you to Joni. And then if you're like, I want to see all that, I'm not sure what you're talking about, on that link in the description box, we have some downloadable color keys. So you go to the landing page. You can print them out. You can see the fabrics. You can see the blocks and kind of make your decision from there, because it is hard to pick. Now, you can do more than one Build-A-Quilt. I know that I couldn't keep up with that, but we have several that do that. So you can check that out. So make sure you click the link in the description box to see all that. I know this is a lot of information, but I'm just so excited that we're to this point, right? It's been a lot of fun. So anyway, registration is open now. We only open up registration once a year, because obviously once it starts. So you have some time, but it's going to start in January. So if you want to check that out, just click the link in the description box below. Like I said, we're going to have a great time building quilts together. So any questions? One of the fun things I think about Build-A-Quilt is it does let me kind of work on my pattern writing. And thank you. And when you are learning something new and you're not good at it, doing it repeatedly helps. So I remember when I started writing quilt patterns, I had designed fabric for another company, art gallery, and they wanted some free patterns to go with the fabric. And I would always make the patterns free because I didn't want to have to worry about selling something that wasn't good. But I've gotten a lot better at it, so it's kind of fun. Okay, speaking of patterns, somebody said, do you ever release the BAQ pattern itself? Okay, great question. We need to put that in FAQs probably. Not yet. So the idea is you get the blocks and the patterns. We have talked, and Joni's kind of been on me for the last couple of years. I'm thinking about putting together a Build-A-Quilt book. So the idea would be this book would have 30 blocks. Maybe it would have 6 different patterns. So if I do, it'll be something like that. It'll be kind of in a bigger pattern. Not to say that we won't ever, release the patterns, but right now we don't have that. Another question, perfect. What is the size of the finished quilt? It's going to vary. So this year it ranged from like 70 by 80 upwards of a queen size. So in the layouts, I usually have 3 options. One is an easier kind of option. One is not difficult, but it has more to it. So this year was like a bunch of tiny nine patches. And then I have one that's just a little bit more modern. So they're kind of ranging in size that way. And when you get the kits, it's just the fabric for the top and the binding. But the next question is, will I design a matching backing fabric? Yes. So it's really fun having total creative control over the fabric. To be able to use those prints any way I want. And one of the things we do is we take a couple of the prints from the collection and make it into extra wide fabric. So there will be backing fabric you can get. I'll pick out coordinating threads for those of you that want to do it. It's really a fun, kind of fun deal. So I know that was kind of a random thing to talk about Build-A-Quilt, but like I said, it's kind of the culmination of a ton of work, and I'm super excited to do it, especially since we're starting in January. I was telling Jessica, I'm like, I've even got some of the patterns written already, so I'm super ahead of it. All right, but like I said, one of you lucky viewers is going to get free Build-A-Quilt. So what you're going to do is I'll just tell you the winner. The winner is Don Newton. So Don, you are lucky winner. My middle name is Don, so I love that. Anyway, Don, you're going to want to email us at customerservice@quiltingismytherapy.com and give us your name and stuff, and we'll give you the Build-A-Quilt of your choice. So super excited about that. Anyways, I hope you all are having a great week. I hope that your weekend goes great. And like I said, sorry I was gone for a couple weeks, but next week I'll be back again, and we'll be talking about kind of some earlier quilting and watching a style evolve, which is really kind of fun to walk down memory lane. Until then, everybody, stay safe and happy quilting.